Okay, so I originally had thought to myself of doing three other different video ideas, and I thought about doing some talk about Endgame. Now, what I wanted to do tonight was try to do a non-spoiler discussion about why I think I'm largely going to be done with Marvel films for a while, unless they really find a way to bring it up a notch. So, Endgame, without spoiling anything, is the end. In a way, it is to... I've got a copy of Infinity here. I read this from time to time. It's one of my favorite graphic novels. Or just like parts of Hickman's Avengers, which is just... If you've never read Jonathan Hickman's Avengers, I did a whole video on it. It's a brilliant run. But to in a sense, Endgame is sort of the Jonathan Hickman kind of a story, where it is the end of an era, and it is intended from the start to be the end of an era, and focusing on the main Avengers, the cast that we all have know and love from the first Avengers film and Phase 1 of the MCU. It is a goodbye to them. I'm not going to tell you how they're saying goodbye, but it is a goodbye. And what's sad about it is, outside of the storyline, which again I'm not going to talk about because I'll just say it's a great movie. The sad thing about it is that it really, because it feels like the end, because it doesn't really set anything up in the future, in a weird way, I walked out of it saying, I think I'm done for a while. It's sort of like being a guy who's been off and on the keto diet. I remember when I decided to start keto, I had one last pizza. And then I had it, and I was very full, and I passed out in a food coma. Woke up, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I think I'm done for a while. And that's sort of my feeling. Well, no, not sort of. It is my feeling after that. And this is largely an emotional, process with me. I love superheroes. I've loved superheroes ever since I was a little kid. And there will never be a day that I don't love superheroes. But, like just about anything else in life, there is the possibility of fatigue. There's been long time talk about when people in general are going to get superhero fatigue. And it wouldn't surprise me if that day is coming very soon, because there's not anything to set up for anymore, in a sense, unless they were to find ways to either bring in new teams or different events that somehow you don't have the Avengers in, which is difficult in and of itself. Because think of it this way. Every single major Marvel comic event that has ever happened in their publication has involved the Avengers in one way or another. And I don't mean like specific title events, because every single character you can think of is going to have events. Like, oh god, there's a bunch of X-Men ones that come to mind. Mutant Massacre is the first one that comes to mind for me because it's my favorite. That's the one where the Morlocks were slaughtered by the Reapers. Great comic. Again, Claremont blows it out of the water. Oh god, there's others that I'm forgetting. I'm forgetting the one where the name of it where Wolverine gets the adamantium ripped off his bones. Fatal Attraction. And there's like those sort of things. Then you've got the Ragnarok arc with Thor, which the movie didn't even touch, which was really unfortunate because the comic arc done by Michael Avon Oeming is infinitely better than the film. And even for people who liked it, I actually liked Ragnarok upon a second viewing. I liked it more than the first viewing anyway, because I kind of got what they were going for. But all sorts of titles have those sorts of things. But if you think of the big Marvel events, the Avengers are always there because they are the apex team. They are Earth's mightiest heroes. You get you look at like the other teams of Marvel, the big two, other two big ones are the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. Members of the Fantastic Four have been Avengers, specifically Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm. I don't think Reed or Sue ever have. But I could be wrong on that. There's been a lot of Avengers rosters. The X-Men have had several members of their number be Avengers as well. Namor was an X-Man. He was an Avenger first, and an Invader first. You have Wolverine, obviously has been known as Avenger. Bendis folded him in during the New Avengers run, which was basically, hey, here's all the popular Marvel characters all in one spot, and Sentry, because Bendis ruins everything because Bendis. But Wolverine has been an Avenger. Before him, Beast was an Avenger. And a lot of people actually forget that. So there's interplay there. But without the Avengers, without this lineup being around, specifically Cap and Iron Man, because everybody knew they were going to not be around after this film because Downey and Evans did not renew their contracts. It was kind of a duh that, this was going to be the goodbye to those characters and probably others. So, but with that, what it does for a guy like me, who's loved the Avengers as far back as I can remember, is it doesn't really give me anything to look forward to. It doesn't give me anything to build towards. Now, some might say, well, maybe they'll go the same route that the DCEU is, where they're focusing more on standalones. And they likely will do that. But at the same time, there's always going to be that craving. I think of all of the Marvel films I've seen opening night in theaters, which is probably about half of them. I think about the crowds for Avengers films, and then for everything else. And the crowds for Avengers films are double or triple opening night. Like I said, like when I saw Captain Marvel, there was like maybe half the screens were Captain Marvel because it's opening night. And they did the same thing with Alita too. But and then after opening night, they kind of fold some out and so on and so forth. With Avengers, there were like maybe 3 or 4 other movies playing that night, like last night. And that's what's crazy when you think about it. So the question is, can you really afford to have the Avengers not be a thing? Now, you could do a new Avengers thing, but are they really the Avengers without Captain America and Iron Man? I don't think so. And my reasoning is because of the comics. Steve Rogers is Captain America. Tony Stark is Iron Man. If you try to make them anything else, or if you try to make anyone else them, it always falls short. Now you might say, well, Micah, James Rhodes was Iron Man for a while. Yes, he was, but Tony was still in the picture. He still had a role to play. Without him there, I would wonder whether or not there is really star power. But there's no indication that they're going to try to make Rhodey into Iron Man. Not that I would be against it, mind you. I'm just arguing fiscally. If you said, we're going to do Iron Man 4 with Don Cheadle as Iron Man, I'd buy a ticket. I'd be all over it. I love Rhodey, and I love Don Cheadle as Rhodey. So, no complaints there. There's another idea of somebody else playing Captain America. I'm not going to reveal who. That would be a big-time spoiler. I don't think it would work either, because they tried it in the comic books of other people being Captain America, and it just has never gone well, because Steve Rogers is an iconic character. He is America. He embodies the nation, in a sense, and its spirit. And if you start to peel that away from everything, it just doesn't... there's no one else who can really step in those shoes. There's been a lot of people who have been Captain America aside from Steve Rogers. You have U.S. Agent was Captain America before he was U.S. Agent. Sam Wilson was recently in the comic books. Bucky was. None of them really ever fit. So, yeah. And that generally is just my thought. It won't be the same. What I would hope is that they would still have success for years going on and focus on smaller maybe even team-up films or something like that, or cameos or something like that, that would get people interested, or just simply focus on having very strong villains. Or even consider doing villain solo films. I'm really encouraged by the excitement of the Joker film, because maybe Marvel won't make the same mistake again and tie, because they have the rights to Fantastic Four, they can do a Doom film. With the rights to Fantastic Four, they have the right to Doctor Doom and other Fantastic Four characters. If they don't tie him to the origin of the Fantastic Four, that's a positive thing, because Doom is not tied to the origin of Fantastic Four. Reed Richards is tied to the origin of Doctor Doom. It's a little different. So, but if you do that, and you do like a Doom film, and you just call it Doom, or Doctor Doom, or what have you, then that could be interesting. You make it just this interesting thing about the rise of Doom and how he became who he is. And then you have him be the Fantastic Four villain in the next film, and don't fucking kill him off. Ugh. So that's another trope that's actually bothering me. Another thing to add to that is to have, consider doing other things that would get people interested in that character, introduce kind of the bigger villains. I am hoping that Marvel is going to consider over the next year to purchase the full-on rights to Spider-Man again. Like everything, not just because Sony owns the distribution, and that includes distribution of characters, meaning that there's like a profit-sharing thing going on. So the reason I say that is, think of this. Spider-Man versus Venom. A film. That would be a huge film. Think of how big Venom did. Like, Venom beat out Wonder Woman in total gross. Like, that's freaking insane when you think about it. So, yeah, it is something that I really think they really need to consider, is buying up the rest of the rights and doing them right. And I think that will be what they're going to need to carry them forward. But even then, I'm just not as interested as I used to be. And that, I think, is unfortunate. My name is Micah Curtis. I'll see you next time. Dave's Fold.